uh, um, the various sourcing strategies. Okay, sourcing strategies. So from many suppliers, full suppliers, we talk about vertical integration, joint ventures, Keiretsu networks, and also virtual companies. So virtual companies, whereby you rely you're getting services, from other places, and probably there is no physical interaction. For example, design houses, you send the design and then you produce according to design. So there are virtual companies that operates. So rely on a variety of supplier relationship to provide service on demand. Uh, many companies are also outsourcing their HR, human resource management processes, or even accounting processes. Okay, so they don't want to be bothered by HR issues, so they outsource that. So there are many kinds of this unique enterprises that is created for different kind of new businesses, e-commerce, all these internet, you know, um, what do you call, businesses are changing a lot of things. Okay. So they are exceptionally lean performance, low capital investment, flexibility, and speed. They sometimes just become the middle person for something to be done. Okay. 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 When you talk about supply chain, one of the most important thing that needs to be considered is the risk involved. Okay, supply chain, there are risks. So more reliance on supply chain means more risk. The more suppliers you have, the more risk that you're actually going to be faced with. And the fewer suppliers will increase dependence on the supplier. Then fewer suppliers also increase the risk. Because if one supplier fail to meet your delivery, so you are going to be affected. Okay. What if the supplier is not local but overseas, somewhere in Europe, and there is a strike, there is a war, a sudden upheaval, so fewer suppliers increase dependence, and it increases your risk, compounded by globalization and logistical complexity, as what we are witnessing today. Globalization has resulted in breakdown in logistics when there is a pandemic. So this is a good research question. Good research question. What to do when there is a pandemic? How to solve supply chain issues in a pandemic? Because it's globalization. Everybody depend on each other to, I believe in more regional, that's why now I'm starting to think now, why China built this land transport. For many years, we have been depending on air transport to actually, or even sea, to supply. But now, because of the pandemic, the chances that you're going to get the product by air is little. So we can use land transport now. You can, connect from China to Europe through land, or from China to Malaysia through land. We can supply materials, or to Bangladesh. So land is movable, and you need high-speed train. High-speed trains can be able to, so Nian, you are nodding your head, agree me. So China has a very a very long-term vision strategy. I'm just giving my opinion here. Okay, I'm not a future, forecaster. No, I can see how China will be able to, sustain its competitiveness and able to supply its products because of the logistics issue resolved through land. So we're going to go back to the, our early age of civilization. So civilization, mukashi wa land, mukashi. Yeah? So we still going to use land transport. Air transport, more namin tabun maybe. So risk. Also, vendor reliability and quality risk, that also must be considered. So that's why it is important to select the best supplier. Or, in Toyota, when they build factory in other countries, they bring their keiretsu. They bring their main suppliers together. So don't just bring Toyota assembler, but they bring their keiretsu together. Okay, same China. Okay, bring employee worker to Malaysia to build the ECRL. Google ECRL, East Coast Railway Link, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur to Kota Baru, China Cup project. It's a big project in Malaysia. Political and currency risk. That is also, going to affect, when you talk about supply chain. Okay. So risk and mitigation tactics. So risk must be managed. Okay, we cannot just say we don't want to. We cannot avoid. Okay, we must manage it. So we have to research. We have to find out and assess possible risks. We can do some risk analysis and risk containment and all the strategies. You need innovative planning. You can try to think about how to reduce potential disruptions, prepare. Responses for negative event. That means what would you do when there is this event A? So we already do some preparation. Flexible and secure supply chains. So basically you need planning. You need some form of planning and also proactive decisions. Proactive, or you can go for diversified supplier base. Okay, not only one or two supplier, but few supplier base. So these are some of the examples that is quite universal. You can universal means if you carefully take this and say, okay, risk reduction tactics is actually to use multiple suppliers when supplier failure to deliver. So this become into your document or your the operations planning. So what you should be actually be putting in place. For example, McDonald's plan is supply chain 6 years before opening in Russia. Meaning that they already set up, okay, this is the plan, they set up the whole business ecosystem. Okay, I mean, you can think about it, right? Ecosystem, that means they need to have bakery. Okay, we secure first. They need to have, this meat, chicken, fish, and lettuce suppliers. And how they're going to, so they invest first, they buy companies before they can actually make sure that they set up the McDonald's. Okay. In Korea, before they actually started their car industry, they started by building up their suppliers first. That's they didn't actually, like in Malaysia case, we built the Proton first. We didn't build up the supply base. We didn't have we didn't have a tire supplier. We didn't have a car seat supplier. We developed later. But Korea, no. Korea way was they bring in car seat suppliers first. They make car seats. They localize first. They start by, it's like here. McDonald's way of if there is no suppliers, if the supplier failed to deliver, and they create more, for example, in engineering, we need to have a lot of plastic mold makers, molding, okay? So you need to have die, tool and die. So Korean developed the tool and die industry first. But Malaysia, we didn't. That's why there was, we are facing some issues actually. Supplier quality failure, careful supply selection. From my experience, because I've selected suppliers, I've dealt with suppliers, if you fail to select the best supplier, you're gone. Okay, I can give a 5 hours talk about supplier selection alone. Supply selection in terms of their delivery capabilities. That is why you audit suppliers. But today's audit ISO 9000 is not auditing really the capability of suppliers. If I audit suppliers, you'll go to the Gemba and see every steps and look at all the operating procedures. So this is very important. And then training, of course, you need to train the supplier, certification and monitoring. Monitor means at the end of the evaluation period, every year, you need to assess ranking, supplier ranking. Who's the best supplier? Why are they the best? Who's the worst supplier? Take countermeasure, give feedback, tell them to improve this, tell them to improve that. So it's not easy. It's not easy, quality aspects. For example, Darden Restaurant has placed extensive control, including third-party audits. You need third-party audits to audit suppliers and logistics to ensure constant monitoring and reducing of risk. Logistic delays. So you need to have multiple transportation modes. The problem with many people is that, when you start working, because of lack of experience, you are not proactive. You are not proactive. Proactive means you cannot see where the failures are. Yaakob, you cannot see where things can fail. But the person like me, who has already, you talk to experienced person, they can see where the failures are. So you look at the potential failure possibility, failure modes, and you take proactive. Proactive. So Walmart has its own trucking fleet and numerous distribution centers. Okay, so that's how they ensure the late, the on-time delivery. Okay, distribution, careful selection, monitoring, and effective contracts with penalties. So Toyota trains its dealers around the world, invoking principles of the Toyota Production System, TPS. Toyota is one of the best companies in the world. I'm sorry, I have to tell you, even if you don't like Toyota, I have to tell you, one of the best managed production system and dealer system and improvement is actually Toyota. Okay. So they train dealers and they have standardization. Okay, you can, well, maybe Mercedes is high performance, BMW is high performance, but there are, there are many small issues. Anyway, information loss or distortion. How do you think that Boeing produce aeroplane, but they have different IT system developed in many countries, Japan, US, because all system will have dependent on some, software to actually run it. So how do they integrate it? So that is, you need to actually make sure there is no information loss or distortion. How do you ensure that these parts and these parts actually, meet together? Okay, risk. This risk must be. So they uses a state-of-art international communication system that transmits engineering, scheduling, and logistic data to Boeing facilities and suppliers worldwide. Okay, political risk. So these are the risks. Political risk is huge. You can have, they have a political risk insurance actually. Okay, companies will pay for that. So how do you reduce this Hard Rock Cafe reduce political risk by franchising and licensing rather than owning when the political and cultural barriers seem significant. So rather than they own it, they franchise it or give license. Okay, so it's a much less risk, and not exposed to big economic risk. Like today, we are facing this pandemic. Okay, economic also we are facing this exchange rate. How do we actually, hedge our inflation risk? Okay, you have to pay more when the monetary, the exchange rate changes, or even natural catastrophe like what happened in tsunami in 2010 in what they call Japan, Sendai. Okay, or so what happened tsunamis. So you have to, because at that time there was a cut off in parts. Many suppliers, many companies were not able to. So they need to relocate some of the critical components to a safer, no natural catastrophe country like Malaysia. Malaysia, no natural catastrophe. minimum. Okay, one of the safest place. There is no big flight like Yangtze River flight. No, then flood. No flood. So there's a lot of things. Okay, insurance. So these are things that must be protected, basically. So you have to use RFID. This is common, and this is so common. Let's see. So the US, they have this domestic port radiation initiative where the US government has set up radiation portal monitors, scan nearly all imported containers for radiation, scan, and they can see what is in the container. That's why you can find containers having recycled plastics sent to Malaysia and not declared as recycled plastic. So there is a syndicate exporting, when China closed down their plastic, recycle business, all American companies sent to Malaysia, and last year there was a big cover. They found companies bringing in illegal waste material and processing it in Malaysia. Malaysia is or even Bangladesh, very easy to penetrate, very easy to come in. Anyway, there are risks when you talk about supply chain. Things like security and JIT shipments get lost, stolen, or you need to insure on this, and you need to also have innovations to make sure that have sensors, have seals when they're broken, they are already tampered with, or tracking can help expedite shipment. So a lot of things have to be considered. It's not very straightforward things. Okay, and there are other things that also must be considered. So to manage the integrated supply chain, let me just, okay. Can I just show you the one video that I've found in the what do you call internet, from the web, to see how extensive the. Can you see the video?
No.
Okay. Mieru?
Hi, 見えます.
Can you hear?
No.
Oh, sorry. ちょっと待ってね。ちょっと待ってください。Because I need to share with the sound, okay? ちょっと okay. Share computer sound.
On vacation, bring us to family, and in general move us from point A to point B faster than any other publicly available transport on Earth. Here's how a modern commercial jet aircraft is made. So, it's a beautiful fall morning, and I am getting ready to get on an airplane to go to France to learn about airplanes. I flew to Europe to visit the factories, research, and design facilities of Airbus because they wanted to give me and you a behind-the-scenes look at their newest airplane, the A350. Here it is. But before the first flight happens, even long before the first rivet is set, a team of thousands of engineers and designers spend years developing the design for both the aircraft and how it'll be manufactured. They have to take into account the desired passenger capacity, the range and speed of the plane, passenger comfort, requirements for landing and navigating airports, flight controls, fuel efficiency, how and where materials and parts will be sourced and produced, and a million and sundry other details. Over the course of the design, engineers use computer simulations and wind tunnel models to test the aerodynamics of the aircraft in its takeoff, cruising, and landing configurations, and even use scale model engines powered by compressed air to understand the wing-engine interaction. Fluid dynamics is freaking complicated. All of the various systems have to be independently tested, the wing flaps and the landing gear deployment and the engines, and so on. They even shoot several dead ducks into the engine at high speed to make sure it can continue to provide thrust if it encounters a flock of birds. Once a plane is designed, the parts, all 2.65 million of them, have to be manufactured and assembled, some by Airbus itself, and many, like the engines and landing gear, by outside contractors. In the case of the A350 aircraft, the wing tops and bottoms are made in an additive process using carbon fiber-infused resinous tape, which is then cured in a massive oven until it becomes stronger and lighter than steel. Let me say that again. That is going to be an airplane wing, made out of tape. The wing boxes are assembled and fitted with electrical, hydraulic, and fuel systems, painted, and then the flaps, slats, and ailerons, the things they use to steer, are added. The ginormous tail fin is constructed in a similar fashion. The fuselage, and rear pressure bulkhead are built separately, again out of carbon fiber composite materials, and are wired and outfitted with instrumentation and hydraulics. The nose of the aircraft is added, and then all the parts built off-site are flown by a special and hilarious-looking airplane part carrying airplane to the final assembly line, where in a single stupendously massive hangar, the fuselage pieces are fastened together, the wings are connected, landing gear installed, auxiliary power unit put in place, vertical stabilizer and horizontal tailplane are attached, seats and ventilation and cabin and cockpit interiors are installed, etc. Finally, at the very end, it's time for the engines. They're the most expensive part, so they're put on last. The plane then undergoes in-flight testing to make sure all the systems are working as intended. When a new aircraft is being developed, the first few planes built are covered with sensors and tested extensively to the range of their limits. Cold weather, hot weather, high altitude, water on the runway, tail scraping on low-speed takeoff, wing bending strength, etc. And in addition to this extensive prototype testing, every single plane that comes off the assembly line is taken on its own test flights. Once the test pilots and test flight engineers are happy, we're done. The plane heads out onto the runway for delivery to an airline somewhere around the world. When it's running at full speed, Airbus's facilities will build 10 A350 aircraft every month. That's one plane completed every 2 working days. It's a pretty amazing feat of engineering, manufacturing, infrastructure, and technology. And if there's one thing that I learned about airplane manufacture while visiting Airbus, it's that every single part of the process has its own expert. There are air traffic control experts, seat experts, wing flap experts, wind tunnel engine model experts, and even carbon fiber recycling experts. All so that you and I can get from New York to London in a few hours instead of a few days. I am here in the escape hatch of the Airbus A350. If there were an emergency, I would have to jump out of this place. But I'd like to say thank you to Airbus for bringing me here. It's been an amazing trip. I've learned so much about airplanes, and it's been really fun to see the production facilities and to see the test aircraft and stuff like this. So yeah, thank you to Airbus for allowing this to happen. I hope you've enjoyed it. I can't believe how big this airplane is. It is huge. I don't want to jump out. Oh, and one more thing. If you'd like to buy an Airbus A350, just get in touch with Airbus and let them know I sent you.
So, do desu ka? How is your, can you relate to supply chain? You tell me now, you share with me. Anything related to when you talk about, how many parts, if you remember, if you listen just now, he mentioned how many million parts.
How many? Which part?
Million parts were used to actually
Oh my
assemble.
God! How many millions? Yeah,
He
it's
mentioned it.
huge.
He mentioned it.
And they completed 2 aircrafts within 2 days. One aircraft.
Yeah, that is also was mentioned.
Oh
There's actually 2.65 million parts.
2.65. Oh, they mentioned here.
If you listen, if I remember correctly, it's 2.65 million parts. Yeah, you look at the flap, you look at the, even seats, real seats. The seats are actually all numbered, and the wire harness, the, the instrument panel. So it is logistically, amazing, trying to actually, and it is sourced all over the world. Okay. I have also seen a Boeing video actually, Boeing, what do you call manufacturing. Okay, the wings. We have a company here in Malaysia that actually assemble small component of the wing, not the whole wing, but some small components of the wing. Yeah? Okay, there's 2 companies actually in Malaysia. Right. Oh, it's almost time, 9:35. Let me just try to wrap up. I think we are just finishing. I want you to read, some of these things. I'm not going to go detail on this thing. You must read this, and probably I will start on this. Okay, building this supplier base. Building the supplier base, supply development, centralized purchasing, e-procurement, and so on, systems, and probably because there is okay. I need to next week. Okay, measure supply chain performance. This is something that you probably need to do, and also the score model. Right. Any questions for today?
No.
Please read the chapter in the book because it will help you to further understand. Okay. I'm not giving assignments for every week that we have. I will based on what I promised to give you. Okay, but I hope you can read the book and try to understand further. If you need to know further, you can ask, prepare some questions for me to for us to discuss. Okay, right. So I think you have any questions, Jacob? Anything that probably you want to, or anything that you want to ask my opinion, like supplier issues, I was like almost 6 years with Proton, and for 2 years specifically in supplier quality assurance. Supplier quality assurance. That means taking care of supplier quality, developing Malaysian suppliers for the national car, for Proton, okay, for the automotive industry. It was a big challenge.
Yeah, of course. Oh my.
In 1980s, trying to understand how how to maintain quality, how to make sure delivery, and also proactively trying to solve problems. A lot of problems that have to be dealt. Late delivery.
It's a huge responsibility, actually.
yeah, it's a huge responsibility to make sure production are actually smooth. But of course, there
Yeah,
will be
if there is any disruption of supply chain management, production will be hampered.
yeah,
And if there is any like more or adequate amount of purchase, then it will gonna give loss also.
yeah,
The
yeah.
company is
So
bearing the loss. That's why
in
it's
some cases, we had to stop production line because of non-delivery,
non-delivery.
late delivery and non-delivery of parts. So we need to stop the production line for a few hours before the shipment arrive. Then we restart production. So it's a loss. Imagine if we
Yes,
stop
yes.
production and in the production line is a conveyor line. If there are 200 workers, so what do you do with the 200 workers not doing anything?
I
So,
think, yeah.
it's a loss to the company. But suppliers are penalized actually for non-delivery. Late delivery, non-delivery, they are penalized per minute.
Per minute. Oh
Per
my
minute. Because, for example, if we don't penalize, they will take advantage of, the situation. So if they
yeah, of
know
course,
that
of
they will
course.
not be able to delivery, so if they result into 10 minutes late supply, if for example 1 minute is 500 ringgit, then they have to pay like well 60 times 500 is around 30,000 ringgit of losses
for
to Proton.
yeah, yeah. For per hour.
Yeah, for that portion that actually resulted into the line stoppage.
Ah. All the suppliers are from like Malaysia.
All the suppliers, most of the suppliers are from Japan.
Ah.
Some of the suppliers are actually from Malaysia. There are also suppliers from Korea and also from Europe. Because some materials you cannot get it locally. Okay.
For
Any
Proton.
any questions? Any other things that? No. Okay.
No,
It's
thank
fine.
you.
Okay. Right. So I'll see you next week.
Next week. See you next week,
Yeah.
Professor.
Take care and
Uh,
good luck. All the best to you.
bye bye.
Okay. Thanks.
ありがとうございました。
はい。ありがとう。ま
Thank
た
you very much.
また来週。はい。はい。また来週。
Bye bye, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, Ako.
Thank you very much also.